Hello there, you're watching the polls on the JoyNews channel. Coming up this afternoon, tension is rising in Boko as 7 persons have been reportedly shot dead by military personnel in that area following the resurgence of violence in the area. We'll take you live to Boko, where opinion leaders are holding a news conference on the latest security situation there. Also this afternoon, the National Democratic Congress is asking the Public Accounts Committee to expedite public hearings on the COVID-19 audit report published by the Auditor General, which cites serious infractions in the disbursement of public funds during the pandemic as well.
The NDC hereby calls on the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament to expedite its public hearings on this special audit report into COVID-19 fund.
So are there demands from the opposition party feasible? We'll look into that, and later in the bulletin, how safe is your food as you consume them from the roadside? We'll find out as we engage the Food and Drugs Authority here on the polls on, of course, the issues of food safety. And in our Joy Clean Ghana campaign, the AMA task force has arrested several traders selling their wares on drains and under unhygienic conditions against the hygiene protocols. These are more coming up here on the Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Don't forget that we're also on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. This is JoyNews, and don't forget that the Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. We're back with the details here on the Pulse. This afternoon, we talk about the COVID-19 audit reports because the opposition National Democratic Congress is asking the Public Accounts Committee to expedite public hearings on the COVID-19 audit report recently released by the Auditor General, which found serious infractions in the disbursement of public funds during the pandemic. As part of the remedial measures, the audit service called for the retrieval of some $80 million worth of COVID-19 vaccines, which remain undelivered. The Auditor General is also questioning why honor certificates were raised for food items distributed by the Gender and Social Protection Ministry. Well, at a news conference moments ago, National Communications Officer for the NDC, Sami Jainfi, called for immediate measures to deal with persons culpable of the financial embezzlement.
Sit aloof and watch the mother serpent of corruption and his appearance fee collection vice Alhaji Bawumia whitewash this audit report and sweep it under the carpet as they have done in time past. Enough is enough. Unlike President Akufo-Addo, who was proving to be the chief corruption clearing agent, the whole world witnessed how the Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera cracked the whip on officials of his government who were found to have misused COVID-19 funds. The Malawian president is on record to have fired his labor minister, Ken Kandodo, together with 19 other public officials. Friends, Kadondo's crime was that he used less than $800. Listen to me carefully. His crime was that he used less than $800 of COVID-19 fund on allowances for a trip to South Africa with the president of Malawi. This is what decisive leadership is all about. But alas, here in Ghana, officials of the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government received promotion and pattern at the back for engaging in acts of plain stealing of public funds. The NDC hereby calls on the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament to expedite its public hearings on this special audit report into COVID-19 funds. This hearing should be televised live for the Ghanaian public to follow and be apprised of how their government expended COVID-19 funds. Secondly, we urge Parliament to compel the Auditor General to exercise his power of surcharge and disallowance to retrieve all COVID-19 funds that have been misapplied or misused through various infractions.
Well, so that's the demand of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Don't forget that just last week, former Auditor General Daniel Yao called on his successor to equally exercise that same power of surcharge.
As to why there is no disallowance or surcharges recently, I think the best person to answer that should be the Auditor General. Remember, the Constitution under Article 1A7 Clause 7B provides that the Auditor General, in the performance of his function, can disallow any item, in fact, he used the word may, disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the people responsible. And that is what I sought to do, because I thought if there are no consequences for the infractions, the culture of impunity will continue. So that is what I sought to do. And I know for sure that the current Auditor General, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Ekuamwa, is more than capable of doing the same. Maybe he may have some challenges which I am not aware of, but I think that by the time I left office, the mechanisms and the institutional arrangements were in place, which he can use to do same.
Yeah, but you want him to go ahead and surcharge, do you?
Of course, yes. In fact, I was waiting to hear that following this report, these people who are misusing money have been surcharged. Because if we don't do that, we can continuously audit. He can send his people 1,001 times on the field, but we will continue getting these infractions. And even people get emboldened because they think that nothing is going to happen as a result of this audit. So it is my wish and my expectation that those that is saying refund should go ahead, serve them with notice of intention to disallow and surcharge them. If they are not happy, they should go to court. It doesn't matter whether they go to court or they don't go to court. It is quite deterrent. And if they go to court, well, they may win, they may not win. The Auditor General may lose some of the cases, may win some of the cases, but that is the name of the game.
Well, so this is the second time we're hearing of that demand for not just public accounts, but the need to surcharge as well. So let's expand the conversation. I want to bring in Benjamin Kwashe, chairperson of the NDC Council of Elders in South Africa. Adam Senano is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Hadi Yakubu is Fighter General of the Economic Fighters League. And Hadi, Happy New Year. I've not seen you the whole of this year, so it's good to have you on. Of course, you have some perspectives on this matter as well, asking that Parliament institute, of course, and commence the hearings into the COVID-19 expenditure. But some say, well, a lot of what has gone under the bridge, and what we should see now is action from the president. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Blessed, and blessed good afternoon to you and the co-panelists and the people of Ghana. Yeah, Happy New Year. This is the first time I'm speaking on your platform. It's I think in a serious country, this would not even be a discussion. You know, by now, actions would already have been taken about this wanton dissipation of public resources in the name of COVID-19. And I think it is very telling that even though we had been told that the COVID-19 pandemic had devastated the Ghanaian economy, it actually turned out to be a cash cow for some people to loot and share. I think that we need seriously, and this is something that we've been saying over and over again, and you know, sometimes you get weary, you get worn out of saying all these things over and over again, because it is very, very easy. Now, the political economy of corruption, the political economy of stealing, you know, white-collar stealing, is very, very clear. The reason why Domelovo is not Auditor General today is because Domelovo, you know, dared to surcharge certain powerful people in the government. You remember the issue about the $1 million payment to some company that did not do any work, and that invited surcharge by the Auditor General on the former senior minister, now senior presidential advisor, Yosefo Mafo. And that is where the troubles began. So the political economy of corruption starts from the Constitution of the Republic, which gives power, enormous power, to the executive to do almost whatever they like. And they appoint the Auditor General, they supervise the processes, and they can do all manner of machinations to remove the Auditor General. I think that the things that happened to Domelevo may be the reasons, or some of the reasons, why this current Auditor General is hesitant in issuing disallowances and surcharges.
But that's your personal suspicion of what may have transpired.
No, but
if you look at the accounts, I mean, if you look at most of the accounts within the report itself, most of the respondents are pointing to how novel the situation is. The fact that this is COVID-19, it's a pandemic, for Christ's sake.
Yes, and novel situations give novel opportunities for novel stealing, and that is what has happened. So the Auditor General cannot just restrict himself to issuing the report and going back to sit in his cozy office. He ought to be able to issue the surcharges under the power of the law that has been provided to him. But I'm saying that the political economy doesn't necessarily give him the confidence to do that, because he knows what happened to his predecessor. And all of us were in Ghana when that happened to the predecessor, and we talked a lot, and we did not see any change. So of course, he being in that same situation will be a bit hesitant in making sure that he doesn't go the same way that his predecessor went, just so that what happened to his predecessor doesn't befall him as well. So we need to seriously look at the root of all these things. Yes, the present case demands that there needs to be some actions. And, I have absolutely no hope that any serious action is going to be taken.
Let's hear from...
I have no hope that any serious action is going to be taken. But we, the citizens, must insist that the governance model that we run in this country must change. And it must change with a measure of urgency. You see, the 1992 Constitution is a completely bogus constitution that has made sure that all the power that is vested in the executive is capable of being weaponized, is capable of being manipulated, is capable of being used for ends that are completely at variance with the interests of the people. And therefore, we must, as a matter of urgency, begin serious discussions about changing this 1992 Constitution. That is the root of the evil. And if we do not look at the root, we will continue massaging the issues and applying palliative, what doctors call palliative measures, which will never deal with the root causes of
Okay, I see your perspective. I see your perspective there, but for the NDC, they believe that the immediate step has to be that public hearings on how our funds were expended, and possibly a surcharge on individuals who have spent the cash. Benjamin Kwashi, help us out on that. The belief is that your NDC, your party, is simply playing politics with this.
I think we should move from this as a nation. I've taken time to read the Auditor General's report, and it's damning. I look at the report and I see our country on a verge of total collapse. The impunity with which this NPP administration does its things, the impunity, the disregard for laid down procedure, the disregard for the consciences of our nation, it's something that I cannot even wrap my head around it. Look, it's nothing about political expediency or not. COVID happened and everything that we had in our country was geared towards COVID. Everybody said the pandemic this, the pandemic that. Little did we know that government, during this global pandemic where ordinary citizens were suffering, just wanted to make money out of this pandemic. How insensitive can we be? How can we be this insensitive? Look, you read the Auditor General's report and you ask yourself, does the president read these things? Does the vice president read these things? Are we still going to align ourselves with politics when it comes to the wanton dissipation of public funds? Funds that Ghanaians, taxpayers, are giving us to run the country. It's being used to run individual egos, individual objectives, and individual plans. You can never say that the NDC is making a hue and cry over this for no reason. It's absolutely not here nor there. The report is damning. You can't do this. Look, this morning on another platform, I said, each day there's a scandal that happens. We're looking at the Auditor General's report. We've not finished with it. But then there are documents the presidency have sent even to Parliament, and the reports that are coming out, they are more damning than what we get in the Auditor General's report. Where did we go wrong? The former spokesperson for the Nanado campaign, Dr. Mustafa Hamid, I heard him right when he said what is going on in the country at that time was so bad that he said, wallahi, we need to rescue this country from the NDC. Today, where is he? Can he say the same wallahi under these circumstances? Look, it's time we put politics aside and surcharge any public official that dissipates public funds to inure to their benefit. The Ghanaian people have sacrificed for everything that we are going through today. It shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, but the solution, the solution,
said,
yeah, but the solution is the problem now. Your party is saying, let's go to the Public Accounts Committee. Let's get Parliament to impress the Auditor General to surcharge. Some say, I mean, the Auditor General has every single constitutional power to act. He failed to do that in the report.
He failed to do that because we have a president that doesn't respect that institution. We have a president who told us that he's coming on board with the ANAS principle, and when he became president, he had ignored that principle.
But how is this? How is this a problem of the president? When you have an individual in office?
It's a problem of the president because, like my good friend Yakubu said, the president has all the executive powers to ensure that the findings are implemented immediately. If the president cared about the public purse, it shouldn't be me and you calling on him, because I believe the Auditor General's report got to him first before it went to Parliament. I believe that the minority in Parliament is not going to sleep. The party is going to ensure that every single cent that was misused, especially under the public funds for COVID-19, are retrieved, and would ensure that we use the proper channels. If the president doesn't want to act, other channels are there that the NDC caucus in Parliament will use to retrieve all these monies for the good people of Ghana.
Why not go after the Auditor General? At least you've seen his predecessor, someone who's indicated clearly that he has that will to fight corruption. I was just speaking to Daniel Domelevo last week. He says, well, all I do is to surcharge. Why is this Auditor General failing to surcharge and you're leaving him off the hook just to go after the president?
Okay, the Auditor General is there appointed by the president. You are right. What happened to Domelevo was because he surcharged people that are quote-unquote big men that are not supposed to be surcharged. Domelevo's crime was that he went after them. This Auditor General has simply said, you know what, I don't want to be sacked. I don't want to fall for the same thing that Domelevo felt for. This is the report. Parliament, do what you have to do. You see, we are not building institutions by this kind of behavior. When you put fear and timidity in people who are supposed to ensure that the public purse is protected, this is what happens. I think it's a shame on all of us as Ghanaians, if we don't want to blame the president alone, that we've put in somebody to give us such report, and we've made it so easy that he can just say, I'm not surcharging anybody. How do we grow as a country? In years past, the media, the CSOs, everybody was going to say, no, you need to do this, you need to surcharge. Today we see timidity everywhere. So you don't blame the Auditor General, because he's also ensuring that he protects whoever appointed him. And that is where the Constitution comes into play. There is too much power for the executive. And if we want to grow as a country, this is time we look at the 1992 Constitution again. This is where we make input to ensure that there's accountability at all levels of government.
Benjamin, this is where Adam would disagree with you. Adam, correct? Because, of course, we saw your protest the other time asking the Auditor General to, of course, make use of that constitutional power on surcharge. But I don't know what your thoughts are on what Benjamin is saying.
Well, I think we are aligned, except that I would have, and maybe you have a point, I would have insisted that no, this Auditor General must disallow and must surcharge. Otherwise, he should pack bag and baggage and leave that office.
Really?
Yes.
Let's not give him that opportunity to think that, look, because he's president, I sack him, therefore don't do what is required of you. No, he must disallow or surcharge or leave that office. Otherwise, as other CSOs have indicated, we probably need to head back to court to compel him to do so. It does not make sense. If you are accepted to take up a public office whose mandate is clearly stated, whose functions have been defined and the Supreme Court have indicated what you need to do, you cannot come back to us and say, you have chosen to give us a 120 or 140 page report and that's it. That's not sufficient. Let's disallow payments that ought not to have been made. Let's charge people who have made payments and, you know, they've done things that ought not to have been done. Then, in addition to that, let's go to the Public Accounts Committee and make sure that any additional investigations, any implementation, audit report implementation committees that ought to be in place are also doing their work. And we are doing a holistic approach to this issue, not just one or the other.
But Adam, we've seen in the past, and of course, you are still as CSOs in court, of course, trying to find out the opinion of the Apex Court on that order from the president asking the previous Auditor General to proceed on an accumulated leave. That matter is not out of the way yet, so it's still fresh in the minds of Mr. Ekwuama, who's now the incumbent, knowing that, well, if I go ahead to surcharge, there may be challenges. That's the reality in the system, I guess.
Well, yeah, it may be a reality, but don't accept the office if you are not ready to perform the function. Period. You are committing a fraud on the people of this country when you accept to play a role that you have already made up your mind you will not play. I mean, so what are we paying you for? Just to write reports? Then you're not biting. That's why you are seeing the increasing level of impunity that we see across board. It is because the political will, the public officers who have been entrusted to take action are unwilling to do so. So if you can't do it, don't take the job, because we are paying you for a function. And that's the point. You are not just there to do what you think you ought to do. The job profile has been defined. The tasks have been outlined. As part of those tasks, we have a Supreme Court ruling that is clear, categorical, on what should be done in respect of these things. If you refuse to do it, you are refusing to implement the ruling of the highest court, of high court of this land. You cannot be allowed to go scot-free.
Is Daniel Yao Domelevo not increasingly becoming, that yardstick by which you, the CSOs, are judging his successor with? That may be unfair on his part, correct?
Well, it's not unfair. I mean, and you know, it's an important thing about governance. You get more effective governance where the participation of key stakeholders is promoted. So to the extent that the key stakeholders in our good governance have gone to court, have gotten this ruling, and we all believe that this is good for Ghana, it's good for all of us, you cannot decide to do something that, you know, in your myopic view is the way to go. And Mr. Domelevo was outstanding in that context because he was willing to go along with the court process. He was willing to appreciate that this is what is in the best interest of Ghana and to take the actions. I mean, obviously he knew he was going to step on toes. So if you're not willing to take that level, I mean, it's one of the reasons why, for example, at the moment, Mr. Kesi Ajabeng would find a lot of favor with civil society and Ghanaians because the office that he holds, he is not there to, as it were, carry favor of everybody. He by all means to step on some toes. But in the best interest of this nation, you've got to take the actions that allow democracy to thrive and for us to have the dividends that we expect. If you think that we should pay you, and mind you, these offices don't go along with small payments. If you want to take those specs and the payments and you're not deliver on it, then you should expect that we'll be criticizing you and comparing you to Mr. Daniel Domlevo, who was willing to go the distance, albeit knowing very full well that he was going to come under the scrutiny of the political parties and those who are there. And definitely, you know, as we have seen, they were not willing to allow him to execute what was required of him.
Gentlemen, finally, let's just dissect these two issues. The public hearing on the expenditure of COVID-19. What problem will it solve? And now also will dovetail into the concerns of the NDC, asking Parliament to impress the Auditor General to issue that power of surcharge. But we know that there's a constitutional impediment there. And let me start off with you, Benjamin Kwashi, the fact that your party is trying to, of course, force or influence the Auditor General to act when indeed the laws protect him. He's not subject, quote, to the control of any political establishment, individual or organization. So you're limited in that scope.
I think, like my friend Adam has indicated, look, I don't think that the Auditor General is put in that office not to bite. We pay him to bite. We pay him to ensure that any infractions that happens when you look at the audit of our public funds, you go after whoever made that mistake and ensure that the monies are recouped back into the state. Now, what I see clearly to be the challenge is the willpower to execute the mandate of his office.
Yeah, but the point is you can't control him. You can't control him by what the law says.
Yes, we can control him, but then we'll get the appropriate measures that would ensure that he does what the law says. We'll go to the court. And I think that this is the time that we all have to ask every arm of government to, for once, put down political colorations and ensure that the system called Ghana works. The judiciary, the executive, the legislature, and also we, the citizenry. Our president said we should never be spectators. We should be citizens and not spectators. These are some of the things that we need to talk about. The Public Account Committee hearings, we all listen in and we see the wanton dissipation of the public fund. What we need as a people to do is to hold our leaders accountable. How do we hold them accountable? By ensuring that ABC has been indicated in the report that he was not entitled to this amount, but he has gotten that amount. Surcharge the person, put the person before court. Let the court deal with those people and get us back the money that as citizens could be used. Look, this COVID report by the Auditor General, it has come at a time that we all have said to ourselves that we made mistakes believing that COVID was Ghana's problem. COVID is not. I remember my last interview with you, you indicated COVID globally, Russia-Ukraine war. But now, with this Auditor General's report, do you stand by that opinion? No. Because the Auditor General report has clearly told us that instead of COVID being an issue, COVID brought us money that has been distributed into the pockets of politicians. How do we do that?
Well, you're finding this out because the report is public, and yet your political party is saying, let's go ahead and hold public hearings on the accounts. What would that achieve if it's not for political gains?
You know what it's achieving? For a week and over, the media was discussing the fallout from the reshuffle in the minority caucus in Parliament. And everybody was happy. You know why? Because even the communicators of the ruling party were so happy with it. Now we've come to reality. The report is here. How did we get to know about details of the report? We got to know about details of the report from the Public Accounts Committee hearings. It's a brilliant thing that the committee hearings were made public so we can all see. We can all see firsthand.
Yeah, but that will not bring back the money. It would not bring back the money, would it?
You know why it will not bring back the money? You know why it will not bring back the money? Because Ghana, as usual, we make it topical for today, tomorrow, the next day. On Monday, the media sets another agenda for discussions. How do we continue as a country this way? The hearing alone should let Ghanaians get infuriated to the extent that they see that, look, we've made sacrifices. There have been haircuts here and there. We are being told that make sacrifices even of your investment. The investment we are supposed to make sacrifices for, there is one single person who is making millions out of it and asking us to make haircuts? No. The public account hearings has enlightened us as a citizenry and has made us realize that it is time we hold accountable whoever it is that needs to ensure that this report is implemented. And I can assure you, whichever means, whichever ways legally possible will be used by the minority caucus in parliament so that this ends. It needs to end. It's a pity seeing things like this.
Adam, do you agree with the public hearings on the COVID expenditure? And what will it solve, by the way?
So, first of all, I think it's a good idea because it extends the period of discussion. Otherwise, blessing, you and your friends will kill this within another week.
So you're coming at the media.
Let's help you to keep it alive. It's very important.
All right.
Yeah. So I think it's a brilliant idea. Let's continue talking about it. And not just that, let's ensure that the legal processes which we may need to start to compel the current Auditor General and any other persons and entities that must act are also brought on board. So the continued discussion and keeping it in the limelight, for me, is good. It's good for Ghana. It's good for all of us. In any case, the opposition party at any given time, in any government scenario, is the party that is responsible for holding the ruling government in check. So there's a sense in which today is the NDC. They are playing their rule by the book by holding the current ruling government in check. And it is good if they say a particular issue deserves a lot more attention. In this case, honestly speaking, this report is so saddening and depressing. It's almost as if we decided there are no systems and there are no processes in this country. So paying a little more attention for another 1 month, I think will be a good thing so that we can drill down to who are the spending officers who have messed us up, who are the directors, who are the ministers or deputy ministers who we should have been fired long time ago. I think it's a good thing to do.
Okay, let's wrap up then. So next phase will be in Parliament. Possibly the hearings may happen, but what would you be expecting from the MPs as we probe these matters?
That's to me?
Yes.
Yeah, I would expect that at least you are drilling down. I've always wondered, what are the names of the persons who had the authority, the influence to do the procurement, to do the expenses? What efforts did they make in line with the Public Financial Management Act to make sure that there was reconciliation and that the paperwork and paper trail was complete? Any persons along the chain who do not follow the law, let's identify them individually and let's make sure that they face the full rigors of the law. We seem to have a situation where public officers can get away with murder. This is a good time to turn that round and ensure that you set a precedent that can last this nation and make sure that people avoid taking up these kind of actions that ultimately just pull down and undermine our democracy.
Adam Senanu is co-chair of the Citizens Movements Against Corruption. Benjamin, for you, where are you leaving us off on?
No, I think I agree with my brother Adam. On the floor of the House, I expect that there should be a vigorous debate. I expect that there should be a consensus between both the majority and the minority to ensure that this wanton dissipation of public funds comes to an end. And I believe that our leaders need to know from hence that whatever you do, we would get to know through the Auditor General's report. If you're doing it for the benefit of the country, we'll know. If you are using the citizenry's money for the good cause, we'll know. But if we continue in this trajectory, it's sad where we're leading our countries to. Young people have given up on the economy, and you ask yourself why. There's still hope. Yes, there's still hope. But we cannot allow this impunity to continue. We cannot continue to disrespect the sensitivities of the Ghanaian people. I think it's time that we all rally around as a nation, irrespective of our political coloration. The media should also support the minority in whatever they do to hold this government to check. Let's make the agenda setting something that will help in the development of Ghana, not something that would only inure to the parochial interest of somebody sitting at the Jubilee House. but it should be something that we're doing that will inure to the benefit of generations yet unborn. We can't, and we cannot continue to use funds this way and expect that there will be something for generation yet unborn. After all, we have met something. Are we going to say that we'll leave them with nothing and then they suffer just to satisfy the whims and caprices of somebody? No, we will grow from that, and we urge the media to help. We urge that the legislature, the executive, and then the judiciary's role becomes so important. Let's not say we don't trust in the judiciary. Let's go to them with the public accounts records about this wanton dissipation of our funds and hear what they tell us, the Ghanaians. If they tell us that, no, we don't want it, then we know that the judiciary is also compromised, like the executive. But we shouldn't get there as a nation. We trust in the judiciary, and as a political party, the NDC that I belong to will respect the decisions of the court and will put the truth before them. Truth that would enable them retrieve funds that have been misused by public officials.
Thank you, Benjamin Kwashi, for joining us. Also to Adam Senanu, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, and to Hadi Akubu of the Economic Fighters League. Well, a lot more is unfolding on this matter. Non-profit organization Send Ghana has just released a statement equally raising concerns about the COVID-19 expenditure. Comes with the title of the Auditor General's report on COVID-19 expenditure. Should not become another audit report. Heads must rule, and that's coming through from Send Ghana. As you see on your screens there, SEPs indicate that Send Ghana has observed with keen interest the continuous media reportage on the Auditor General's report regarding the misappropriation of funds mobilized by the government of Ghana to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Multiple reports suggest that a substantial part of the COVID-19 funds have been grossly misapplied and channeled to fund other government interventions and flagship programs as well. It is said it is a sad incident to note that out of nearly 22 billion Ghana cedis that was raised in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic between March 2020 and June 2022, just a little over half, which is 12 billion Ghana cedis, was used to fight the pandemic and its related impact. The misapplication and mismanagement of these funds directly contravenes and also violates the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, which was instituted to regulate the public sector. And SEN continues to raise more concerns, asking the Finance Ministry to act fast on some of the infractions. We'll definitely follow that and bring you some updates, but we're staying on the economy because the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, has mounted a spirited defense for government's decision to offer new terms under the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. After extending the deadline for the third time, the Finance Ministry fell short of indicating clearly what the future holds for thousands of individual bondholders who continue to mount pressure on government, asking government for a total exemption. While some individuals have also threatened not to exchange their old bonds for new ones, but will such bonds be honored by government once they mature? We'll be listening to the Deputy Finance Minister shortly, but I want to just quickly update you on this matter. The organized labor has also waded into the matter, joining the individual bondholders over a number of concerns following the extension of that deadline. We'll bring that to you shortly, but listen to the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, speak earlier today on the Super Morning Show.
We are replacing all the old bonds with new ones. And so you created a risk for those who were holding the old bonds, in the sense that if they have to, an individual bondholder has a liquidity challenge and he wants to trade off his bond, he needed a market to trade in. And because you have transitioned all the old bonds to the new ones, he's virtually going to get maybe 10% of the value of his bond. So, for instance, let's say I have a bond of 1 million Ghana cedis as an individual bondholder. If we finally transition to the new bonds, there will be no market, especially in the secondary market for me, in case I have a liquidity challenge. I cannot trade that 1 million cedis that I have for immediate liquidity. And that may cause me to receive maybe just 100,000 out of the 1 million. And so we realized that by default of the new arrangement, you are disadvantaging the individual bondholders. So let's give them an option. Now, the option is that individual bondholders can still choose to exempt or choose to stay out. But in their own interest of future liquidity challenge, we are encouraging them to also take a new bond that we are issuing specifically for the individual bondholders, which we said 59 years and below, you're going to get 10% coupons. It's no longer zero, as we announced earlier. It's gone to 10% per annum, and then the maturity from 15 years is reduced to 5 years. So clearly, this offers a huge opportunity for individual bondholders to now come on board. And those above 59 years too, they will even have coupon rate of 15% and maturity reduced to 5 years. The advantage, even though it's voluntary, the advantage for taking these new bonds is that in case of future liquidity challenge, you are still able to trade your new bonds and get the value of your bond. Rather than, so let me advise those who want to just hold to the old bond, if that is what they prefer, is that you have to hold on till end of maturity. So if your bond will end in 2027, please, no matter your situation, don't try to sell it.
So that's the caution by the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kumah. But there's an update on this. Organised Labour appears to be raising questions, fresh ones, about the domestic debt exchange. Let's get to that, shall we? It's, of course, coming through as a press release by Organised Labour on the current information in the public space in relation to the domestic debt exchange program and pension funds. So following a meeting held at the TUC Hall today by Organised Labour, the following resolutions were passed. That first of all, by the agreement between the Government of Ghana and Organised Labour signed on Thursday, the 22nd of December 2022, with the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, Ignatius Bafo-Awuah, responsible for employment and labour relations, executing same on behalf of the Government of Ghana, and Dr. Anthony Yao-Ba, who happens to be the General Secretary of TUC on behalf of Organised Labour. The agreement is as follows: that government has decided to grant, quote, exemption to all pension funds in the domestic debt exchange program. Now, the statement continues to indicate that Organised Labour hereby reiterates that this position is final as far as the involvement of pension funds and that the domestic debt exchange program is concerned. And by this, the Organised Labour is also indicating that all pension schemes are not participating in the domestic debt exchange program as per aforementioned the exemption from government. Beyond that as well, there's a second point that the statement is raising, pointing to the fact that any contrary communication or position is alien to us and should be dismissed by all well-meaning Ghanaians, and that any attempt to go contrary to this agreement will be fiercely resisted by Organised Labour, and that they are assuring the worker population and Organised Labour that they will continue to safeguard the interests of the working population at all times. So government is in for a very tough time there. I want to bring in Angel Kabunu, who speaks for NAGRAT, is a leading member. Thank you, sir, for your time. You were part of that meeting, and I'm sure that, of course, you are concerned about some of the public statements made, for instance, by the Deputy Finance Minister. Which one is of concern to you? Is it the case that there's been an extension and that individual bondholders remain invited?
Well, at today's meeting, which was fully attended by all Organised Labour representatives, we are very worried about the changing narrative that is gradually coming from government sources, creating the impression as if there is a new and acceptable condition, and that the conditions have changed, and that work labor is gradually hooking onto the condition. And we wanted to set the record 2023 that the agreement we had with government around the 23rd of December 2022, exempting pension funds from the debt exchange program, is final. In fact, Labour is suggested to government other ways of finding solutions to this economic quagmire that they have foisted upon the people of Ghana. We have made several suggestions to them. So the seeming changing narrative coming from government sources is what we want to correct and allay the fears of our members that hold on to the
Hello, Mr. Kabono. Hello, Mr. Kabono.
Yeah.
Yes, but by that, I'm sure that you are also admitting the fact that when it comes to the official statement that was released by the Finance Ministry, there's no mention of any pension funds being affected as a result of the extension and the review of the terms of the domestic debt exchange. You agree?
For you to do the things that government is doing and the possible outcome of the government is doing. We know government works with government, and we don't have to connect.
Angel Kabono, we seem to be losing you intermittently. If you could just reposition and take that point for me. I was talking about the clear indications that we've seen on the statement, not touching on pensioners. Can you hear me? And if you could just take that point for us again. Angel Kabono, are you still with us? It appears we've lost Angel Kabono, who is with NAGRAT on this. Of course, raising their concerns about what it is that has got to do with the domestic debt exchange program. Definitely, we're monitoring the space and equally paying attention to the concerns of organized labor. We'll update you subsequently. But it's also the 1st of February, and today, the Joy Clean Ghana campaign has returned following a break from the Christmas festivities. The campaign for the year kicked off at Asiedu Kitike, one of the 3 SAP metros of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. It houses the Central Business District, some of the hubs and communities within the metropolis as well. As the center of commerce, it hosts some major markets within the Greater Accra region, such as Mokola, Agbogbloshie, and others. The nature of the sub-metro, therefore, attracts an estimated daily influx of about 2 million people from various walks of life who come into the city for administrative, educational, industrial, and commercial concerns. On the restart of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, the task force arrested several traders selling their wares on drains and under unhygienic conditions against the hygiene protocols. Michael Ashali was there and now reports.
Essentially, this is the work that the AMA is here to do in Agbogbloshie. This year, they tell me they have changed strategies. Rather than seizing the worst of these persons who are outrightly breaking the law, they have decided this time around to arrest the persons who are selling or displaying their wares illegally on these drains here. They have been here several times, but the people only leave here for a short moment of time and come back to the streets here. So today is Action Day, and they are arresting every single person they have found wanting, breaking the law.
Come and carry this. Ask for this and we'll carry it. Carry this yam. No, it's for him. It's for him. Carry this yam and go and put it in the car. Carry this yam. Carry everything. Go Don't put them in the car. Call the bus to come. Carry the yam. Let the pickup come. Call the pickup to come. No. Carry the yam, put it inside. All this yam, put it inside. Bring the car. We don't care. We are taking it there. It doesn't matter. Please carry the yam and put it inside the car. Come and carry this yam.
Florence, you said you were not going to seize the wares that they are displaying. Why have you changed tactics for this particular vendor?
We've changed tactics because the person who is for this yam has deliberately denied that the yam is not for him. And you could see him running, going there. You saw him running. There were two. We arrested one. He was standing by this yam and he has decided to run away. Since he has run away, we are taking the yam away. We will take the yam away. When he comes, then he will come and tell us the amount, the number of yam that he left here, if really it is for him. You are telling us the yam is for the other man. He will tell us the amount, the number of yam that he has here. When we count and it is up to his yam, we'll give it to him. If it is not up to his yam, then he has lied to us, and it's also an offense. Yes. It is also an offense to lie to a public officer. So carry this yam, add all these things, I'll carry the yam. That is why we are taking this particular yam.
What if he doesn't come back?
He will come. He will definitely come because this is his capital. He will not leave it. He will come. They are telling us we arrested someone and the yam is for him. Everybody knows the number of yam they are selling. So he will tell us the number of yam he is selling. If it is true, we'll give it to him. If it is not true, he has lied. And it is also an offense to lie to a public officer.
But what was the offense here? Because they seem to be behind the wall.
They are not supposed to even sell anything here. See, they've just displayed for sale the yam on the background, which is very bad. They've displayed for sale the yam on the background. And it is not every microorganism that has its way into food you cook that will die. Some will hibernate in the heat. Then when you eat it, it will then rejuvenate and start multiplying in you. And we all know that of late we've been hearing food poison issues in the country. And all these things are part of it.
You can see quite a number of people in the bus here, just in a space of 10 minutes. These are the number of people that have already been picked up by the AMA task force at Agbogboshi. They're hoping to find many more people. And you see how common it is in Agbogboshi for people to sell on the shoulders of the street, and again also to display their wares where they are not supposed to. It's getting heated whilst the AMA continues with its mandate here. A very chaotic one here. I mean, this individual is resisting arrest from the AMA task force here. I mean, he disagrees that he should be the one picked up here, but many more people, fall prey to the law, clearly displaying their goods on the shoulders of the street.
In fact, it is not difficult. We are successful. We had a successful workout today. We have arrested not less than 20 offenders. And as we are going back to the office, we are now going to take their details, and then the legal enforcement take effect from there. So today we had a successful day. There will never be an enforcement without a riot. If you undertake an enforcement without a riot, then it's not an enforcement, it's bullying. Yes.
So let's talk about the episode that happened with those selling the yam on the shoulders of the road. They seem to have overpowered the AMA in the fight to right that particular wrong.
In fact, they haven't overpowered us. You know, we are public officers, and we are not supposed to be seen struggling with people in the field. If we do that, it means we have defeated our aim of being in the field. Attacking a public officer is an offense. You, the public officer, you are not supposed to attack back. You have to go back and then come back with the service officers to pick them. So they never overpowered us. We were just exercising our mandate in the field.
So what's going to happen? Are you going to leave them?
We cannot leave them. We will pick them, as I said. You know, since they try attacking us, we are not, the law does not allow us to attack people in the field. When they attack you, you need to go back. Then you report the case, and then it will take its effect. Because when you attack a public officer assigned by the government to perform a public duty, it's an offense. It is even a criminal offense to that effect. So we are going to work on it.
This will be the first time, my memory serves me right, that you have the mayor of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly joining the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, and she's here as part of the first exercise for the year 2023. And for her, everything must go. The individuals that are behind those selling, including their wares, all must go. And the mayor herself is joining us for today. And there's an order from her that all of them must go. But Mayor, why are you arresting them?
All of them, these people. Why are your boys?
Please, man, they are doing it at the back. They are coming.
Arrest all of them. How many times do they want us to talk to them? They know what they are doing is wrong, and yet they are doing it.
Yes.
So arrest them. And then when they are gone, nobody will come and park here. This is what has created the problem at Yellow City Wache.
Yeah.
It's all because of this fault. You are training them, you are telling them what to do a whole year, and they are not responding to it. Now arrest them. Yes, arrest them. After cleaning, last year, we did the sorting over 8 times, all over here. See what they've done. So stinky, and they feel comfortable sitting in this, forgetting about their health. I've come around, we've talked to them, the health and directorate have spoken to them. How many times do they want us to come here and talk to them? And they still are in the same mood. They've not intended to change. And so now we will embark on arresting, and that should be in the policy for the day.
Areas like these that I walk are supposed to be pavements, but this has rather become an annex of the Agbogboleshi market. Many more traders prefer to trade on the shoulders of the road and taking over the pavement. But this will probably stop or not. But for today, all of them have been asked to move. I'll be asking the mayor shortly what she makes of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign.
I want to also support the Clean Ghana project that is going on. It's rather unfortunate, and I really feel sorry for my officers. Apparently, that shouldn't be the mood of the market, especially the yam sellers. They are fond of doing that. Either they attack you or they throw stones at you and others. I personally have come, but fortunately, because I'm the mayor, when I come, they are calm a bit and then they try to pack their things. But I've had enough of it. And if they've gone to that extent of attacking my officers, it tells you the next time it will be me. So I'm not going to take it lightly. And that's the action now.
It has been a tiresome and a very difficult day for the JoyNews Clean Ghana campaign team. The mayor herself joined the team whilst they combed through the streets of the Agbogboleshi market to enforce the tenets of the AMA bylaws. Well, she's giving her word that she's going to come very hard because it's time that they put some action to the words they've been saying. This time, they will be arresting even those who are buying from those breaking the law. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
Well, let's say on the bustling streets of Accra, because what you find there are vendors lining up the streets, offering mouth-watering array of food to the countless general public who are rushing by. But despite the popularity of these snacks, there is a growing concern amongst the populace about the safety of the food items that they are consuming. With reports of food poisoning and other health hazards, many are beginning to question the cleanliness and safety standards of these street food vendors. Last week, one person died and more than 50 others fell ill after eating wache from the roadside in Oyibi. Here's how Maxwell Agbagba captured the situation.
A couple of years ago, Cape Coast recorded a serious incident of food poisoning. And also at Oyibi recently, a case of food poisoning was recorded. Now, the big question is, how well do we keep up when it comes to food hygiene? Today, we are here to engage with food vendors and consumers.
Oh, Michelle, I said, me fan say be 5 years ni. And I'm me ton beans and mo ben kun ne keka wan pese nyina me ton bi. Beans ne koko nyina me ton bi jollof bibia ne amedia to ho ne se e se nipa bia de bibia be bia wo ya hweye wo e se bibia to misi market crowd na akwakoto no.
I have been selling here for the past 5 years. I sell rice, beans, banku and others. I personally think you should be careful in all your dealings because anything can happen. Even at the market, check if the food stuff you are buying is good or bad. At times, people tend to buy rotten vegetables and use it to cook. And after eating, it will cause an effect on their bodies. We have to be very careful. Someone can try to use dubious means to collapse your business. Even after cooking, you might have tasted it, but something will happen. Make sure you get someone to look after your food once you are not around.
Obi betumi afa kwan bi so aye obibi e se wo nya market ana nkrofo gu so e to ade enti no obetumi abeye bibi ahyewo o hye ase nu aduan na enye ne o hye ase nu aduan me se aduan kana nka se di bi hweye o ka hweye enti enye ne fort bia na bibi na esi enti no me so ne metumi aka fa ho enti ahweye na ye aye to aduan no ye beye wo do aduan si so a ensoro mfi ho ube kwa mo bi ntena ho no hwema wo na kobra obi betumi afechi abeye obibi ama wenya asem.
How long have you been selling?
It's been about 2 months now.
Okay, and what do you sell?
Fried rice, jollof, and fufu, and sometimes banku.
Okay. So how do you ensure the safety of your consumers, your customers, when it comes to food hygiene?
You know, as for food business, you have to take precautions. Even the ingredients that you use, those that are canned, you have to, when you go to the market and you are purchasing them, you have to make sure, you have to check the expiry date. You see, there are some products, when you check the expiry date, you see that they are faded. You cannot see it well. So on the safer side, you have to buy the ones that are very obvious. And when you put that one aside, where you cook is also very, very important, especially where there are many food vendors and the competition is very keen. There are a whole lot of things that people do to make sure that they sell their foods. I'm talking about spiritually, you see. And if you are somebody who happens to be getting all the markets, you know, some people, you know, they will envy you. So you have to make sure that where you are cooking, the place is in a good condition. Where if you are going somewhere, you have to make sure that there are certain people who are taking care at your back so that no one can come and drop something.
When I was coming, I didn't know anything about food, so they asked me to cut off my hair, and it's because of the food I'm using this veil, and I have to cut my fingernails, and I'm even wearing socks here. And before you even serve the food inside the plate, you have to make sure you have a napkin or maybe tissue to clean everything. You have to make sure that the bowls are covered. Like before you open those salad listing to serve, you have to, after that you have to close it and then flies doesn't. Before we serve the food inside the cooler or a shade that we used, we washed. And sometimes we don't just put inside the floor, like you need to at least get a table or maybe something high, like you can put the something on it, like the food on top. You make sure you have a clean net or napkin to cover the food before we take it here.
At this food joint itself, I've been buying for quite some time now. I noticed that I think I was seeing me here when they opened, but I've been buying for some time now. I mean, not hygiene necessarily. I would say the first thing I look at is the customer service, but then I understand why hygiene would be a factor. Personally, I didn't grow up cooking, so options like this is what I indulge in. So I would look at the hygiene, the environment in which the food, the setting is, and then I would say the community even, because if I went to a place like I want to make mention of some places, but if I went to some different places that the whole community is not really one that really cares about sanitation, I'd feel more skeptical of purchase from those kind of places as opposed to, say, an Adregano and East Legon or Cantonment or something. Right?
I've been buying here for about a year now. I think the first time I came here and after buying from this side, I came the other time and I felt like, regarding hygiene, everything here, she keeps her food very hygienic regarding her packaging and everything. So I feel, okay, it's the right place to eat. So for about a year now, anytime I come around, this is where I've been buying from.
Okay, so you think packaging, good packaging constitutes good hygiene for you?
Yeah, sure. It's a major part of hygiene. Considering if it's like a restaurant or something, you put so many things into places. But here, it's a mini market. And looking at how she keeps her food, she keeps the place cool.
Well, you see, we don't exactly have a lot of options here, and it's a campus, so we mostly go for what is available. But if I'm going to buy a certain food, I will look at maybe the type of food, maybe if it's like more susceptible to contamination. Like maybe most people think food like fried yam or fried potatoes is like maybe more hygienic, maybe because it's fried, so they feel like the germs are gone. So maybe something like that. Even if you don't really like the setting that it's being sold in or that is being prepared in, you would still feel like, okay, it's the least bad of the choices that you could get. Let me say one of the only other places that might seem very hygienic to other people is like really far from here. Like you have to like walk a lot or take a car or something. So these people are mostly profiting because of the proximity to the campus. So because you know that when Saddam lectures, they'll come and buy food, yeah. So
I've bought food here about 3 times.
Okay. And what did you actually consider before you bought the food with regards to hygiene?
When I come to the table and there's leftover food, the unwashed plates on the table, that would really draw me away from the food. Yeah.
Apart from that, any other thing?
I normally watch where they wash their bowls and stuffs.
If the place doesn't have a lot of flies over there and how they've kept the place, you see how the woman has arranged her bowls and everything and how she has kept. Normally, some people have flies in their sieve and she doesn't have some in it. So I check those things before buying food.
So these are the views from food vendors and consumers. Jacqueline Ansumaya Boy's report for JoyNews.
Well, some food vendors and consumers there sharing their thoughts. And what's triggering this is all about the story that we heard from OUB last week. The popular Yellow Sisi Wache food joint, which unfortunately has become a vending point, which allegedly led to the death of at least one person, which was confirmed by the Food and Drugs Authority, while, of course, many others are receiving treatment after purchasing that food item there. But we go back to Maxwell Agbagba, my colleague who was there at the popular Yellow Sisi food joint, and sought to ask what exactly transpired there.
Well, on the normal day, you find scores of people crossing the Oyibi-Dodowa Road to buy wache from this spot, Yellow Sisi wache. Many of them you find in long winding queues, but that is not the case today. As we were told that many of the people who patronized this wache some days ago are now recuperating after what is suspected to be a food poisoning case. Residents here tell us that so far 5 people have died after eating this wache. We've been speaking to health authorities and they've been disputing the figures, but they are unable to confirm the number of deaths to us. They say that many of the people who are affected were taken to health facilities nearby, so they would have to call to cross-check the figures, so they cannot confirm to us the number of people who died after eating this wache. But the residents here tell me that the landlord here who rented the space to the wache seller who lives here in this house also died after eating the wache. And right behind me, family members are gathered there mourning the man who they tell us was about 60 years old. I've also been speaking to Thomas. Thomas is a tiler and he tells me that this is what he eats every morning for breakfast. He's been telling me the pain and how he was rushed to the hospital some days ago after eating this wache.
Well, my colleague Maxwell Agbagba there. At the time of the report, the rumor was that 5 people, but subsequently the FDA confirmed that only 1 died as a result of eating that food. But let's bring in now Rhoda Pia, Head of Communications at the Food and Drugs Authority, for some updates on this. And Rhoda, we're not just talking about what happened at OEB last week, but of course is a starting point for our conversation. So what's the latest updates on that case?
Okay, so we indicated in our last, good evening to all your listeners anyway, and thanks for the opportunity. So by way of quick update, we indicated in our last release to the press that some samples of the food that we found at the Yellow Sisi joint have been brought to the FDA for further testing. And we are waiting on the results. We are conducting 2 tests, microbiology and then also the chemical test. So we hope to get some good results pretty soon so that I'll be able to share with the rest of the public.
But this has brought about the wider conversation on food safety. We do know that there are some measures that you have, regulatory ones, at FDA issuing some form of certificates or licenses to persons who sell on the streets. Is it the case that, these measures are not becoming effective, a reason for which you may be changing your strategies in the coming days?
Okay, so I must say that because, by virtue of our mandate as prescribed by the Public Health Act, we have over the years been regulating food that is processed and packaged and all that. We have been registering them and also giving approval for their sale. But over the years, we have also been taking care of the food establishments, i.e. the various eateries, restaurants, and shop bars. But we realized that street food vendors also play a very critical role as far as the provision of food for the population is concerned. So in 2001, we introduced an initiative called the Street Food Vending Permit. And we work closely with the district assemblies who have assigned the environmental health officers to us to provide some support for us to be able to identify these street food vendors and provide support in terms of good hygienic practices. And if they are able to pass the checklist and the compliance requirements, they are issued a permit. So that started not too long ago, and we've been making some good inroads, except that situations like this brings the import of these interventions to bear, and we seek to heighten our sensitization efforts in that vein and implore, first of all, the consuming public to insist on seeing these street food vending permits before they patronize the services of their favorite joints and eateries.
But for the general public, what do we need to be cautious of as we purchase, of course, and patronize some of these joints?
Sure. So there are lots of good hygienic practices that we expect our food vendors to adhere to. First of all, it's required that they take the health test with the district assemblies and get their health certificate to clear them of any communicable disease before they can embark on a business to sell food. We expect that food hygiene should be one of the major requirements. I mean, taking your bath, washing your hands before you begin the preparatory processes. As a matter of fact, if you are buying food and the seller has these extensions on their nails, wristwatches, earrings, hair not covered, you just should know that some form of hygiene is not being taken care of. The seller must be in apron. The hair must be properly covered. We expect that they shouldn't be having any open wounds on their body. They should at least be having this disposable gloves when they have to serve their dishes and all. Again, if you are buying these products and these foods already cooked or processed foods, you should make sure that the seller is not having a running nose, sneezing everywhere, experiencing colds and coughs. That should be a sign that that person is not healthy and is most likely to be transmitting germs in the process of, serving the food to you. We also expect that even the surroundings should be kept clean. The place where the vendor is selling should be far from where they keep their waste. The waste bin should be at a place where it is neatly covered so that it's not exposing the food that they are selling to any flies and other pathogens and contamination. We expect that at all times we would be cautious and be really vigilant. As a matter of fact, the sellers should not be talking while serving. They should be in, at least their face mask should be on, so that even if they have to communicate, they are not transmitting any other thing, germs to the food that they serve. The principle is that they keep a clean environment. You clean what you see and you sanitize what you cannot see. So the work surfaces, the tables, and the place where the food is served must be cleaned at all times and sanitized. So these are some of the precautions that we expect our food vendors to adhere to. Tasting the food and all. You don't just put the ladle in your mouth when you want to taste the food during preparation. As a matter of fact, if they are able to hire people to cook the food and also people to take the money and all, then obviously there should be one member of staff in their kitchens, small as they may be, who are responsible for checking and ensuring that good hygienic practices are adhered to during the sale of their wares. Because if there is any slip in terms of safety issues, the ramifications are very dire. We are talking about, in this case of the OEB, this lady has about 4 different joints where she plies her trade. Right. But as a result of this slip, people who she has engaged to work have all been laid off, as it were. So it has led to unemployment. People have been hospitalized, a life has been lost. There are possible risks of facing lawsuits and all. So I think a little bit of investment in getting someone to provide that support will be in a good direction to safeguard all of us. But as a matter of fact, it's not just the vendors that we are concerned about. When it comes to food safety, we are looking at it in all its spheres. What happens at the eateries is one of the aspects, but even in our very homes, how are we adhering to good hygienic practices? I mean, how there are homes where they leave their dishes and leave it overnight and wash them the next day.
Right.
The kitchens are not cleaned at night. It's important that before you go to bed, your kitchen should be swept, your utensils should be washed and dried. I mean, kept in a place to dry.
All right.
Your refrigerators must be in the right cooling temperature so that when leftover food or something is left in it, they are kept intact and wholesome. At every given time, we should be careful how we handle food, because I mean, people sometimes take it for granted that eating is just a regular thing that we all do, but it's associated with so much risk, right from the preparatory point or even right from the farm all the way to the fork when it is given to you in the plate.
All right,
and talking about food safety can take us the whole day, as it were, but let's just be on the at the place of caution. How we should be cautious of cross-contamination as well. I mean, you don't stock or store fresh foods with cooked foods, maybe putting fresh meat close to cooked rice in the fridge. There's going to be cross-contamination,
and I'm sure, and I'm sure that there are and I'm sure that there are more factors that, of course, you'd be engaging the vendors on. But we're grateful for your time here on the Pulse. That's Rhoda Appiah. She's head of communications at the Food and Drugs Authority. You're watching the Pulse. We'll be back shortly. Let's take you back to one of our headline stories, which has got to do with the debt exchange program. More and more labor unions are beginning to react to this. Just gone by, you heard from Angel Kabunu with NAGRAT. The Public Workers Union are also wading in, adding their voice to the collective statement that was put together by the TUC on the need to totally exempt pensioners. Bernard J is General Secretary for the Public Workers Union, joins us via phone now. Thank you, sir, for your time. So earlier we're hearing from NAGRAT. NAGRAT says it will not allow government to vary communication on the domestic debt exchange program. It's not clear if pensioners will be affected by the next deadline. But why are you worried as organized labor?
Well, thank you very much. I believe we are speaking as organized labor, and I want to put that in perspective. Our issue is simple. When all this started, we had some engagement with management where it was agreed that pension funds have been granted exemption. So we are not expecting that any form of program that is being announced would include pension funds. And I think that is what we are making very clear and reiterating because of some of the reportage that we are hearing in the media and other quarters about what government is saying. So once there's that general agreement and understanding, we want it to be clear that our pension funds are not part of any debt exchange program.
What suspicions? What suspicions do you have?
Come again?
What are you suspecting? What do you suspect?
Well, we suspect the way it is, the reportage is going and hearing no mean people like ministers and the rest making certain statements to the effect that pension funds will be coming on board soon defeats the agreement and understanding we had on the 22nd of December. And that is what we want to make clear. And I think our reps that are currently engaging management, we've made it clear to them that the position of organized labor is that pension funds are not going to be part of any debt exchange program. There are other proposals that, together with other stakeholders, we have put on board to be considered. And we believe that those are also viable means of dealing with the challenge at hand. And that must be looked at. But our pension funds, for now, are a no-go area.
Right. And very finally, when you met the finance minister, was he clear to your group that pensioners will be exempt?
Well, per the 22nd December agreement, MOU that we signed, that was the understanding. But unfortunately, I was not part of the team that went into this second round of meetings, so I can't tell exactly. I can only speak to the reportage and what we have heard government appointees saying. And we want to put it on record that we have not agreed for our pension funds to be used as part of this debt exchange program.
What would that warrant if government proceeds on that target?
Well, we are a labor union. We are organized labor. We are together on this. So we will meet. We'll report to our members and our structures, and we'll take whatever necessary action we have to take to protect our pensions.
I'm grateful. Bernard J. with the Public Workers Union joining us there. Well, does Ukraine need extra military assistance, including fighter jets? That's the key question European leaders are debating this week as Germany agrees to send 14 of its state-of-the-art Leopard 2 battle tanks to aid Ukraine as the war heads towards its one-year anniversary. Let's get more from DW's Thomas Sparrow, who's joining us with more. Thomas, Germany was under a lot of pressure regarding its Leopard tanks. How did last week's decision to send the tanks to Ukraine go down with the German public? Are they supporting the move by the Chancellor?
Debate as to whether that was a correct decision. On the one hand, many Germans do view it positively, the fact that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz took some time to decide on this issue. You may remember that Olaf Scholz was under a lot of pressure, was being strongly criticized by allies for taking a long time deciding on whether to allow those tanks to be sent. But it seems that, at least from a German perspective, Germans did seem to value that the German government weighed all options before accepting those tanks to be delivered. Now, a different question is what the effect of those deliveries could be, because there are concerns here in Germany about a possible escalation, especially if allies continue to send more weapons, if those tanks do have an effect on the battlefield. So there are two elements. One is obviously support for the German Chancellor when it comes to its decision. On the other hand, there is a lot of doubts, a lot of concerns as to what impact that might have, especially in the long term in Ukraine.
And what about fears that these weapons deliveries could actually have an undesired effect of complicating matters both on the battlefield and possibly when it comes to the future of resolving this crisis?
That is obviously one of the main elements why Chancellor Olaf Scholz took so long to decide on the delivery of those tanks. And that was not only something that he discussed here internally with members of his own government coalition, it was also something that was discussed with Germany's closest allies. German and international leaders have to weigh very carefully what effect those deliveries would have and what it would mean not only on the battlefield but also for a possible future resolution of the war in Ukraine. And that's why it took so long for the German government to announce that decision. We're talking here about specifically very modern military tanks, the Leopard tanks that are German made. Also, US sent their own, or is going to send its own tanks to Ukraine. So there are a lot of discussions as to whether sending those tanks, allowing countries to send those tanks, what exactly it would mean on the battlefield. And this is also, by the way, a discussion that will continue, especially now as leaders across the world are discussing the possibility of sending or not those fighter jets to Ukraine.
And we know that after the tanks, the debate is now centered possibly on sending fighter jets as well to Ukraine. How is that likely to happen?
Well, obviously leaders are now discussing that possibility, and they have explained that no options are going to be ruled out in principle. In other words, that they're obviously going to consider any possible requests from Ukraine. And in this particular case, the debate is now focused on the possibility of sending fighter jets to Ukraine. For some European leaders, this is a debate that is coming way too soon after the decision that was made last week to send battle tanks to Ukraine, in particular German-made Leopard tanks. So I think first it will be a debate about what effect those tanks could have in Ukraine, when they will be delivered, how long it will take for Ukrainian soldiers to be trained on using and maintaining these tanks before European or international leaders decide on whether to send or not fighter jets. It does seem, however, from initial discussions that European and international allies, including the United States, are rather reluctant about sending fighter jets to Ukraine. So again, the focus, at least from their perspective, is still on the delivery and all the preparations for that delivery of the tanks that are being sent directly from countries and also via third parties to Ukraine so that it can have an impact on the battlefield there.
Well, Thomas Sparrow with our partners, Deutsche Welle. And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. Be sure to have more content when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm Blessed. Next.